Your person and their brother had a closed-door conversation about you. The truth finally came out. Something shifted the instant the door clicked shut, and nobody outside that room could have guessed that one quiet conversation was about to rewrite everything your person believed about you. The hallway fell silent. The laughter from the living room faded into the distance. Even the sound of footsteps seemed to disappear as your person looked across the table at their brother with a question they had been carrying for far too long. There was no anger in the room. No dramatic confrontation. Just a long pause that felt heavier than words. Then the brother leaned forward, folded his hands, and said, "If you're asking me whether you should give up on them, you deserve to know the whole truth first." In that single moment, the atmosphere changed completely. Stay close, because the next few minutes reveal why that conversation could never stay hidden forever. The room wasn't large, but every detail suddenly seemed unforgettable. A cup of coffee had gone cold. Sunlight slipped through half-open blinds, painting quiet lines across the floor. Your person didn't interrupt. They simply listened. Their brother had been watching everything from a distance for months. Things your person had overlooked because emotions have a way of blurring what logic can clearly see. He spoke carefully, choosing every sentence as though each one mattered. "You've been looking at the silence," he said softly. "I've been watching the actions." That unexpected difference stopped your person cold. They had spent so much time wondering why certain messages arrived late, why certain moments never happened, why misunderstandings kept appearing at the worst possible time, that they had completely missed another story unfolding underneath. Their brother began pointing out small moments almost nobody else had noticed. A smile that appeared whenever your name came up. A sudden change in mood after hearing good news about you. The way your person instinctively defended you without realizing it. None of these moments seemed important alone. Together, they painted an entirely different picture. But there was one observation he still hadn't shared. One detail he kept holding back, almost as if he wanted your person to discover it naturally. Don't drift away now, because that missing piece changes the meaning of everything you've heard so far. Outside, the afternoon continued like any ordinary day. Cars passed. Neighbors chatted. Somewhere, music played from an open window. Yet inside that quiet room, time almost stood still. Your person finally asked the question that had been sitting in the silence from the beginning. "So, what have I been missing?" Their brother smiled, not because the answer was simple, but because it had taken this long for the right question to be asked. He slowly reached into a drawer and pulled out something unexpected. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't expensive. But the instant it touched the table, your person's expression changed in a way that couldn't be hidden. The object carried a memory neither of them had spoken about in a very long time, and suddenly every confusing moment started connecting like pieces of a puzzle that had always belonged together. Yet the object itself wasn't the real surprise. What it represented was far more powerful. Before another word could be spoken, a notification lit up your person's phone, and the name on the screen froze the entire conversation. What happened after that would reveal the truth neither brother had expected to uncover. A single vibration echoed across the tabletop, and somehow that ordinary sound carried the weight of a turning point. Your person didn't reach for the phone immediately. Their eyes remained fixed on the screen as if they already knew this message belonged to the story unfolding inside that room. Their brother quietly nodded. "Go ahead," he whispered. "Sometimes the timing tells you more than the words." Your person finally unlocked the phone. The message itself wasn't long, but it arrived at the exact second the conversation had uncovered a truth that had been buried beneath months of doubt. It wasn't a dramatic confession. It wasn't an apology. It was something much more revealing, a simple check-in that carried genuine care without expecting anything in return. For the first time, your person realized they had been searching for grand signs while overlooking the quiet consistency that had been there all along. Stay with this, because the next discovery made that realization impossible to ignore. Their brother leaned back and smiled with the calm confidence of someone who had been waiting for this moment. "Do you know why I wanted to talk privately?" he asked. "Because everyone else keeps talking about what they think is happening. I wanted to show you what I've actually seen." He began describing moments your person had completely forgotten. The way your name changed the atmosphere whenever it came up. The hesitation before making decisions that could affect you. The unexpected happiness that appeared after even the smallest interaction. Piece by piece, the conversation revealed a pattern that had never been obvious from the inside. Your person wasn't looking at isolated moments anymore, they were finally seeing the entire picture. It wasn't built on assumptions. It was built on quiet choices, repeated over time. And sometimes, those are the strongest kind of truth. If this story has you wondering how it all fits together, sharing your thoughts below and subscribing so you don't miss what comes next helps you stay part of the journey, because the next chapter uncovers a detail that changes everything once again. Then came the question neither of them expected. "What if I had never asked you?" your person said softly. Their brother looked toward the window before answering. "Then you probably would have kept believing the wrong story." He gently slid the small keepsake back across the table. "This wasn't here to remind you of the past. It was here to remind you that some connections don't disappear just because life becomes complicated." Silence filled the room again, but it felt completely different now. It wasn't uncertainty anymore. It was understanding. Then, just as both brothers thought the conversation had reached its end, another message arrived. Not on the phone this time, but through an unexpected knock at the front door. Neither of them had been expecting a visitor. Yet the moment they heard that second knock, they exchanged the same stunned look, because there was only one person who could possibly arrive at exactly the right moment, and what they were about to say would uncover the final truth that had remained hidden behind that closed door all along. The second knock came slower than the first, almost as if the person outside understood that whatever was happening inside the house deserved patience. Your person stood without saying a word. Their brother didn't stop them. Instead, he watched carefully, sensing that this moment wasn't a coincidence, it was the missing chapter they hadn't known they were waiting for. Every step toward the front door seemed to stretch time itself. The hallway suddenly felt longer. The quiet became louder. As the doorknob slowly turned, one thought echoed through your person's mind: what if everything I've believed until now has been incomplete? The door opened, and standing there was someone carrying nothing more than a warm smile and a simple envelope. No dramatic entrance. No rushed explanation. Just calm eyes that seemed to say, "I've been meaning to bring this to you. Don't look away now," because what was inside that envelope wasn't what anyone expected. The visitor explained that they had found it while organizing a collection of forgotten keepsakes connected to a family gathering months earlier. It wasn't addressed to anyone in particular, yet your person's name appeared inside more than once. Their brother exchanged a curious glance before carefully opening it together. Folded within was a handwritten page filled with thoughts that had never been shared out loud. They weren't perfect sentences. They weren't polished. But they were unmistakably sincere. Each line revealed quiet admiration, deep respect, and a hope that had been hidden beneath ordinary conversations for far too long. The words spoke about moments when your smile had lifted someone's difficult day, about conversations that lasted in memory long after they ended, and about the quiet belief that some people enter your life for reasons that only become clear with time. Your person read every line twice, then a third time, as though the meaning kept growing stronger with each reading. Their brother smiled softly and said, "Now you understand why I kept telling you there was another side to this story. Before you move on, notice one small detail everyone else would have overlooked. It becomes the key to everything that follows." At the bottom of the page, beneath the final sentence, there was a date. At first it seemed ordinary. Then your person realized it matched the exact day they had convinced themselves everything had gone wrong. While they had remembered that day as the beginning of distance, someone else had remembered it as the beginning of hope. That realization changed the atmosphere completely. Suddenly, old conversations sounded different in memory. Missed opportunities no longer looked like rejection. Quiet moments no longer felt empty. Even the pauses between messages carried a meaning that had been invisible before. Their brother folded the letter carefully and placed it back inside the envelope. "Truth rarely arrives all at once," he said. "It waits until you're ready to see every piece." Just then, your person's phone lit up once again. This time it wasn't a message. It was a request for a face-to-face meeting later that evening. No explanation. No details. Only one sentence appeared on the screen. "There's something I've wanted to tell you myself." And in that instant, both brothers knew the closed-door conversation had only uncovered half the truth, the rest was waiting somewhere beyond that evening's meeting. A cool evening breeze drifted through the open doorway as your person folded the letter one final time and slipped it carefully into their pocket. Nothing about the house had changed, yet everything felt different. Familiar walls suddenly carried new meaning. The silence that once felt uncertain now felt full of possibility. Their brother stood beside them with a quiet smile, then said something that lingered in the room long after the words were spoken. "People spend years searching for answers," he said. "Sometimes the answer has been walking beside them the entire time." Your person let those words settle before picking up their keys. There was no rush anymore. Only a growing feeling that tonight wasn't about solving a mystery. It was about finally seeing the truth without fear. Stay with this moment, because what happened at that meeting wasn't what anyone had predicted. The place they agreed to meet was simple and peaceful, tucked away from the noise of the city. Soft lights reflected across nearby windows as evening slowly turned into night. Your person arrived first, taking a seat where they could watch the entrance without feeling anxious. Every passing minute carried its own questions. Then the door opened. The person they had been waiting for stepped inside, paused for just a second, and smiled with unmistakable relief. It wasn't the smile of someone pretending everything was perfect. It was the smile of someone who had finally found the courage to stop hiding behind uncertainty. They sat across from each other without speaking. Sometimes silence tells a story words cannot. Finally, the visitor broke the quiet. "I heard you had a conversation today," they said gently. "I'm glad you did. Because I don't want assumptions deciding our future anymore." Those words landed with surprising calm. No dramatic declarations. No impossible promises. Just honesty. If this story has kept you wondering what truth is waiting around the next corner, sharing it with someone who enjoys meaningful stories, leaving your thoughts below, and subscribing so you don't miss the ending helps keep this journey alive. Then came the sentence that neither your person nor their brother had expected anyone else to know. "Your brother has been protecting the truth longer than you realize," the visitor admitted with a quiet laugh. "He never told me exactly what he said today, but he always believed you'd eventually understand." Your person looked down for a moment, overwhelmed not by surprise but by gratitude. The conversation inside that closed room hadn't been about convincing anyone to believe a fantasy. It had simply removed the misunderstandings that had blocked something genuine from being seen. The visitor reached into a small folder and placed a single photograph on the table. It showed an ordinary moment from months earlier, a moment your person barely remembered. But in the background, almost impossible to notice unless someone pointed it out, was a glance filled with quiet admiration that had gone completely unnoticed at the time. Suddenly every unanswered question connected into one clear story. Yet before either of them could speak again, the visitor quietly whispered, "There's still one part you don't know, and it's the reason I asked to meet you tonight." The expression on your person's face changed instantly, because they realized the biggest truth had been saved for last. The visitor gently turned the photograph over, revealing a handwritten sentence on the back that had faded just enough to look forgotten. But not enough to lose its meaning. Your person traced the words with their fingertips before reading them aloud. Some conversations are too important to happen before the right time. The room became perfectly still. That wasn't just a note. It was an explanation for months of hesitation, missed opportunities, and unanswered questions. The visitor smiled softly. I wrote that the day I realized rushing would only create more confusion. Your person looked up, searching for signs that this was somehow a misunderstanding. Instead, they found complete sincerity. There was no performance. No attempt to rewrite history. Only a quiet desire to finally replace uncertainty with honesty. Keep watching closely, because the next few moments reveal why this meeting could never have happened any sooner. The visitor took a slow breath before continuing. Your brother didn't protect a secret because he wanted to interfere. He protected it because he believed the truth deserved to arrive naturally. Every word felt lighter than the last, yet somehow carried greater weight. They explained how countless small moments had nearly become conversations, but the timing never felt right. There had always been one more distraction, one more misunderstanding, one more reason to wait. Looking back, those delays no longer felt frustrating. They felt necessary. They had given everyone involved the chance to grow, to understand themselves, and to approach this moment without fear or assumptions. Your person suddenly remembered dozens of tiny details that once seemed meaningless, a thoughtful glance across a crowded room, a conversation that ended with an unexpected smile, a message that arrived exactly when encouragement was needed most. None of those moments had demanded attention at the time. Yet together, they formed a story that had been quietly unfolding in the background all along. Then the visitor leaned forward with one final revelation. Do you know what your brother told me after our own conversation? Your person slowly shook their head. The visitor smiled. He said, one day they'll stop asking whether the connection is real, and they'll start asking what they want to do with it. Those words settled gently between them, replacing every lingering doubt with quiet clarity. There was no dramatic ending waiting around the corner. The greatest surprise wasn't a hidden secret or an unexpected twist, it was discovering that the truth had been growing stronger every day, even while nobody was speaking about it openly. As they stood to leave, the visitor paused at the doorway and looked back one last time. This wasn't the end of the conversation, they said. It was the beginning of a completely new chapter. And as your person stepped outside into the cool evening air, they realized something remarkable. The closed-door conversation that had started with uncertainty had ended by opening a future filled with understanding, trust, and possibilities that neither of them had dared to imagine before. A quiet sense of anticipation settled over the evening as your person walked away from the meeting. The streets looked exactly the same, yet every familiar corner seemed to carry a new meaning. The questions that had once followed every step were beginning to disappear, replaced by something far more powerful, clarity. But just when it seemed the story had revealed everything it had to offer, your person's phone buzzed one last time. It wasn't another message from the visitor. It wasn't from their brother either. It was a voice note, recorded only a few minutes earlier. There were no dramatic words at the beginning, only a calm voice saying, "Before this day ends, there's something you deserve to hear directly from me." Your person stopped walking. The city continued moving around them, but for that moment, everything else faded into the background. Stay with this until the very end, because these final words complete a journey that began behind a closed door. The voice continued with remarkable honesty. I spent too much time believing silence would protect everyone. Instead, it created distance that never needed to exist. My brother reminded me today that truth doesn't become stronger by staying hidden, it becomes stronger when it's finally shared. Your person closed their eyes for a brief moment, listening carefully to every sentence. The voice wasn't asking for forgiveness. It wasn't trying to rewrite the past. It was simply acknowledging that genuine connections deserve openness, even when speaking feels difficult. Then came the sentence that tied every chapter together. Every conversation we've had, every moment we crossed paths, every memory we've shared, they all led to this day. Not because everything was planned, but because sometimes understanding arrives only after people are ready to receive it. Those words carried no pressure, only peace. They transformed months of uncertainty into a quiet confidence that the future no longer needed to be built on guesses. As the recording came to an end, your person looked up and noticed the evening sky glowing with the last colors of sunset. The world hadn't changed overnight, but their perspective had. They smiled, not because every answer had been handed to them, but because the most important one finally had. The closed-door conversation with a brother had never been about exposing a secret for the sake of surprise. It had been about clearing away confusion so the truth could stand on its own. And the truth was beautifully simple: real respect, genuine care, and honest intentions had been present all along, quietly waiting to be recognized. Your person slipped the phone back into their pocket and continued walking with lighter steps than they had taken in a very long time. Behind them was a story built on unanswered questions. Ahead of them was a future shaped by open conversations, mutual understanding, and the courage to let sincerity speak louder than assumptions. Sometimes the greatest revelation isn't discovering something entirely new, it's finally seeing what has been there from the very beginning. Morning RE.